Welcome to Reality TV Podcast. The first update we have today is a deep dive mission to really cut through the noise and synthesize all the chaos across some of your favorite major franchises.
Yeah, we're going to be connecting those, disparate pieces, the legal battles, the intense production decisions, complex custody agreements, and all that raw emotional fallout to give you the full, well-informed picture.
Our sources are covering pretty much everything, from production freezes to post-prison life for a major cast member, and of course the big emotional revelations from recent recaps and reunions.
Our mission here is to move quickly, but thoroughly. So you're completely caught up on the high stakes driving the reality TV world right now.
Let's start where the drama is arguably the most concentrated. I mean, we have to talk about Salt Lake City. This is where we see massive life-altering external factors just crashing into the high-pressure environment of a reunion taping.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's unpack this with the recent reunion taping for The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Andy Cohen gave some really telling details about how that taping went down.
And the main takeaway is just how long it was. It was a physical and emotional marathon.
Oh, completely. And when we talk about a reunion being long, we're not just talking about like a couple of extra hours. This was significantly longer than anyone anticipated.
Which is always a sign, right?
It's always a signal that the cast brought the heat, the complexity, and the conflict. So according to Cohen, the taping started a little past 10 a.m., and they were originally hoping to wrap by maybe 6:30 or 7 p.m.
Which is already a full day, a very long work day.
A full work day, exactly. But they didn't wrap until 10 p.m. That's a solid 12-hour session of intense confrontation and emotional labor.
And in the Bravo universe, we all know what a long reunion means. Cohen was pretty quick to confirm this is good news for fans because it means a lot happened.
And he got specific. He confirmed the presence of receipts and props.
Okay, let's pause on that for a second. The fact that cast members arrived prepared, not just with their arguments, but with, physical documentation and items.
Yeah.
It suggests this reunion was less about an organic conversation and more about planned strategic attacks.
It completely changes the nature of the confrontation. I mean, when you bring receipts, you are shifting the argument from emotional interpretation to factual verification. It means the season's narrative, whatever confusion was surrounding it, is going to be definitively settled or, definitively blown up right there on the couches.
It just signals a level of calculated preparation that demands a longer taping time, just to get through all of that evidence.
For sure. And what's also fascinating is the retrospective praise Cohen offered the cast. After watching this level of intense confrontation over 12 hours, he gushed that the RHSLC OGs are strong and have remained stable 6 seasons in.
That is high praise. That's like the highest currency in this world.
It really is. And he explicitly framed it against one of the franchise's most beloved original groups. He specifically compared them favorably to the original cast of The Real Housewives of Potomac.
Wow, to Potomac.
Yes, who are often held up as like the gold standard for original cast strength and chemistry. So to put Salt Lake City in that same category, that speaks volumes about the longevity and the fundamental bonds within that group, despite all the chaos they generate.
I have to push back on that just a little. To compare Salt Lake City to Potomac in terms of foundation and stability feels optimistic, especially given the constant turmoil and the legal issues that have plagued that city.
That's fair. But Cohen noted that despite all the fighting minutiae, he senses a real level of sisterhood.
What does that even mean in practice, though?
I think it means that the conflict is often contained within a genuine, if, tumultuous relationship. That underlying connection, the idea that they do care about each other regardless of the fighting, that's what keeps the engine running for the long term.
So it's the difference between watching colleagues argue and watching sisters fight.
Exactly. When there's an underlying affection, the conflicts feel higher stakes, but ultimately they're survivable for us as viewers because we trust the relationships will persist beyond the cameras.
Speaking of high stakes and life-altering announcements, one of the major bombshells dropped during that very long reunion taping reportedly came from Bronwyn Newport.
Right. She and her husband, Todd Bradley, have reportedly separated.
And this detail is so critical. The reunion wasn't just a stage to discuss the separation. It was apparently the stage for the public announcement itself.
She allegedly revealed the split during the taping, which just highlights how these production events become the ultimate proving ground for personal truths that just can't be contained anymore.
And the sources are indicating that the marital problems were much deeper and more structural than what we had seen on the show. And, we'd certainly seen tension.
Oh yeah, including rumors that Todd might have cheated. But the primary catalyst apparently wasn't infidelity. It was Todd's alleged lack of support for Bronwyn's career and her professional ambition.
This is a story we see repeat itself so often in reality TV, isn't it? The wives find this newfound success and independence on the show, and it creates friction.
It really does. Bronwyn's sources claim Todd was unsupportive of her being on the show, walking red carpets, and specifically writing her upcoming book. The spotlight, it demands a certain kind of partnership. And if one spouse resents or actively undermines the other's success, that marriage structure just collapses.
For Bronwyn, her professional growth was fundamentally at odds with her husband's expectations, and that became the driving force behind the split.
And we actually saw the timeline unfolding right there on the show. Weeks before this reunion taping, Bronwyn was seen taking off her wedding ring.
That's right. And the confrontation reportedly escalated when she was in New York City, where she told Todd that she had been meeting with attorneys and wanted out. She even advised him to get a lawyer, too.
And that detail about the lawyers, it confirms this was not some sudden heat-of-the-moment decision. This was a calculated, legally prepared move. Bronwyn had already started the dissolution process, and the reunion just served as the chosen, albeit highly public, platform for the marital conclusion.
It just underscores the immense personal price some of these cast members pay, where the career they gain is the very thing that clashes with the partner they started with. And it definitely sets up the next season.
Or chaotically, depending on your perspective.
Right. Bronwyn's personal life will now be driven by the legal and emotional fallout of this split, all while she's navigating this newly defined sisterhood on this show.
So now we move from high-stakes marital drama to high-stakes federal legal drama, specifically with Jen Shah. We finally have some updates on her transition following her release from prison.
And we saw that visual moment at the family reunion. Jen was spotted for the first time since her release from the federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas. It was a very quiet, late-night release.
Yeah, just after 1 a.m. She reunited with her husband, Coach Sheriff Shah, and their two sons, Sheriff Jr. and Omar, and they drove off in a black SUV.
But the technical details of her sentence completion are, they're pretty complex, and they're crucial to understanding her current status. Jen is now expected to serve the remainder of her sentence at home in Utah.
Right, but first she had to report to a halfway house for orientation. That's a standard transitional phase, designed to reacclimate inmates to the outside world under supervision before they move to full home confinement.
Of course, her attorney and manager were really quick to control the narrative here, framing this as a new chapter. Her attorney described it as the beginning of a new chapter, highlighting Jen's strength, accountability, and resilience.
And her manager expressed gratitude to the Bureau of Prisons, the BOP, and emphasized that Jen is focused on reuniting with her family and embarking on a journey of redemption.
But here is where we hit some critical friction and where our deep dive really kicks in. The narrative of accountability and gratitude runs headlong into a significant legal challenge Jen is mounting against the system itself.
She is suing the prison warden.
Wait, what?
Yeah, she's alleging unconstitutional confinement because she believes she should have been released earlier than she was.
So she's claiming accountability and resilience, but at the same time, she's suing the facility that just released her.
Sure.
I mean, doesn't that fundamentally undermine the redemption narrative they're trying to build?
That is the core conflict right there. Her argument is a very detailed legal dispute revolving around credit for completing programs, specifically the Residential Drug Abuse Program, or RDAP.
Okay, RDAP. That's a crucial federal program, isn't it? It's designed to reduce recidivism, and completing it can earn inmates a sentence reduction.
A pretty significant one, often up to a 12-month reduction in sentence time. So she's arguing about the calculation of her time served, not the conviction itself. Precisely. Jen claims she earned a 12-month reduction after completing the RDAP, which is a program that requires highly regimented programming, individual counseling, and very strict compliance. Her legal team is arguing that the BOP failed to release her promptly after she earned that credit.
And they're claiming this is a pattern.
Yeah, they claim this is part of a systemic pattern where the Bureau of Prisons fails to release inmates promptly even after they complete these qualifying programs.
And her filing notes, she has a spotless disciplinary record to bolster her claim that she met all the requirements for the RDAP credit.
But the warden is pushing back hard. They're requesting the case be dismissed, maintaining that Jen's official calculated release date is August 30th, 2026.
So this legal back and forth really just illustrates the extreme technicality of federal sentencing. The prison is disputing that she either earned or qualified for the full 12-month reduction, or they're just using a different calculation method.
And her team is arguing that the BOP's internal interpretation of its own policies is erroneous and harmful because it keeps people confined longer than they should be. It shifts the legal fight from, did she commit the crime, to did the government calculate her time correctly?
This detail is so important for you, the listener, because it shows that even after the cameras stopped rolling on the prison gates, the legal consequences and the financial burdens are still the driving force of her life.
And speaking of those financial burdens, the conditions of her new home confinement are very strict, especially on the financial front, which ties directly back to her conviction.
She's subject to home searches, and she can't make new credit card charges or open new lines of credit without explicit approval from her probation officer.
Those financial restrictions are clearly aimed at preventing the type of fraudulent behavior that landed her in prison in the first place. It puts an incredible chokehold on her ability to generate high-volume income outside of, approved streams.
And crucially, the restitution payments.
Yes. She must make installment payments toward her restitution equal to 15% of her gross income. This isn't a fixed monthly fee, it's a percentage of everything she earns.
So as she begins this so-called journey of redemption and tries to rebuild her life, a significant portion of any income she earns must immediately go toward paying back victims.
It will be a continuous point of compliance and intense scrutiny for the entire duration of her term. It effectively caps the amount of money she can realistically keep from any future media endeavors or appearances.
Okay, let's shift gears completely. We're moving from the intense legal scrutiny in Salt Lake City to a production puzzle over in New Jersey.
Right. Andy Cohen was asked the big questions surrounding the Real Housewives of New Jersey, which was, whether the rumored reconciliation between Teresa Giudice and Luis Morelos and Joe and Melissa Gorga was enough to instantly restart filming.
The show has been on a pretty substantial production pause, and I think the logical assumption for viewers was that a major family reconciliation, which has been the key conflict for years, would instantly prompt producers to pick cameras back up.
Of course.
Yeah.
That would be high-value, highly emotional content. But Cohen's response was definitive and, honestly, kind of surprising. He confirmed that the reconciliation did not impact the production schedule for a minute.
Not for a minute. It literally did not move the needle.
And this is immensely significant. It reveals that the pause is not about the Gorga-Giudice feud alone. It suggests that the decision to hold filming is based on deeper structural or, long-term considerations for the franchise.
So it overrides even the immediate gratification of capturing the end of the Civil War.
It does. Cohen explicitly stated that filming on RHONJ will not resume for a while, reinforcing that the break is substantial and it is planned.
So if the long-awaited resolution to the central conflict doesn't move the schedule, what does that tell you about the state of the franchise and the producer's strategy?
It tells us the producers believe the narrative has run dry, or maybe has just become toxic, regardless of a temporary ceasefire. Think of it like taking a car to the mechanic. You don't just fix the flat tire. You need to check the engine before the next 100,000 miles.
They're looking at the structure of the show.
Exactly. The family drama had become so all-consuming and so hostile that it might have alienated parts of the audience, or maybe just exhausted the cast members to the point of burnout.
The structural issue is likely the problem. For years, the story was solely driven by the sibling conflict. If that conflict is suddenly resolved, even temporarily, the show loses its anchor. But by pausing, they create space.
Exactly. A long pause allows producers to reevaluate the entire ensemble. It gives them time to court completely new cast members, effectively forcing a structural refresh and giving the existing cast a chance to stabilize their external relationships so they can then focus on new, non-familial conflicts.
It's a strategic move to break the established pattern.
And it also manages audience expectation. If they had started filming immediately, fans would have expected fireworks between Teresa and Melissa. By waiting, they can return with a new configuration and new storyline priorities. It minimizes the pressure on them.
It gives them a storyline separate from the past feud. This type of structural break has precedence, doesn't it? We've seen it in other long-running franchises when the core conflict becomes unwatchable or repetitive.
Absolutely. It signals that production is willing to sacrifice immediate footage for the long-term health of the show. They are committed to taking a proper breather, despite the possibility of capturing some high-value emotional content. They're betting on a stronger show later, rather than a quick cash-in now.
Now we dive into Beverly Hills, where the drama is highly emotional and centered around public scrutiny, difficult divorces, and the weight of legal legacies. We're talking about Kyle Richards' deeply guarded secrets and Dorit Kemsley's tumultuous split.
The contrast between Kyle and Mauricio's approach to their separation it's fascinatingly stark. And it highlights the different ways reality TV stars manage their image. Mauricio is leasing a new house, and by his own admission, is openly engaging in his hoe era.
Whereas Kyle has chosen to keep her dating life incredibly discreet and out of the public eye.
Right. But she did admit to Erica Jane that she has dated since the separation. What was truly vulnerable, though, was the confession she shared about a specific person she cared about very much.
She cried, saying she fell hard for this person when she was in a very vulnerable place. That raw emotion, it just cuts through the typical reality veneer.
And she was open about her natural impulse. She said she's an open person, and if she's in love with someone, she wants to share that love with the world. But that impulse for openness was directly at odds with the person she was seeing.
Who did not want the public exposure.
Exactly. And that relationship, she claimed, ended because of the intense public pressure. She said the speculation, the gossip, the public scrutiny, that's what ultimately ended it. The person she was with wanted absolutely nothing to do with the publicity and the limelight.
Which is an interesting inversion of the standard celebrity dynamic. Kyle was willing to weather the storm of speculation, but the person she was involved with just wasn't prepared for that loss of privacy.
Yeah, she felt she could have survived the gossip, but the partner couldn't, which is a really difficult reality for anyone whose career is built on sharing their life.
And based on the timeline and her description of a secret relationship that fell apart due to scrutiny, the sources indicate she appeared to be discussing her rumored girlfriend, singer Morgan Wade.
And this is where the plot thickens. Because Kyle was spotted with Morgan again in October, despite claiming this secret relationship had split due to public pressure.
This creates a major narrative dilemma for Kyle. If the relationship ended due to scrutiny, why is she still being seen with the person who couldn't handle the scrutiny?
It forces the viewer and her castmates to question the completeness or, the authenticity of her confession. Is she hiding the relationship to protect the person? Or is the reason for the split something more complex?
And her castmates certainly picked up on that ambiguity. Erica Jane gave Kyle some necessary advice here.
She did. She essentially told her that the other women would not stop questioning her until she addressed the rumors once and for all. Keeping it secret only fuels the speculation, and in the environment of the show, secrecy is an invitation for interrogation.
Shifting to Dorit Kemsley, the emotional strain she is under is palpable, and this goes far beyond typical divorce drama. She admitted she's not taking care of herself while navigating what she called an extremely difficult and messy divorce from PK.
The sources indicate the core issue is not just emotional separation, but what appears to be financial and emotional warfare, tactics often employed in high-conflict splits.
Right. Dorit claimed PK has dumped everything in her lap, including the management of finances, and alleged he does not give her any money.
And that financial control and displacement of responsibility, it creates an impossible scenario. Dorit, who has a business and a public persona to maintain, is left handling the administrative burden of the household and children without adequate financial support. It creates a massive strain.
But the truly heartbreaking part involves the custody conflict over their children. Dorit tearfully stated that PK is torturing her by denying travel for their children's Florida trip,
which they were supposed to take with her parents. She believes he's doing this solely to be mean and punitive.
This is a classic, painful example of using children as pawns in a divorce. Their son, Jagger, is having a particularly hard time and has specifically been asking for Dorit's father.
And Dorit's parents are staying at the house to assist the family during this difficult period, which shows you the need for external support for the children.
And here's the level of control PK is allegedly exerting. He will only let the children go to Florida if they can stay in a hotel with him.
That seems like a clear way to prevent the trip from happening altogether, or at the very least, to maintain absolute control over the family dynamic and ensure Dorit cannot have a clean, private trip with her family.
The reaction from the cast really highlighted the severity of the situation. Sutton Stracke was described as breathless, watching Dorit crumble.
Experiencing a form of PTSD because she herself went through a similarly difficult, high-conflict divorce. She understood immediately the psychological damage this type of warfare inflicts.
And Bozoma St. John offered more tactical piece of advice.
Yeah, she suggested Dorit make PK the bearer of bad news to the children. The theory being that if PK is forced to look his kids in the eye and explain why they can't see their grandparents, he might not be able to take on the full responsibility of disappointing them. And maybe he'd relent.
Interestingly, Dorit felt Kyle Richards questioned her thought process more than the other women did.
And Kyle defended herself, saying she knows PK personally, whereas the others have never met him, implying that they can't judge the situation without that personal context.
Wait, but isn't knowing him personally exactly why Kyle might be less impartial? Especially since she's going through her own very public separation. Wouldn't her friendship with PK cloud her ability to see what Dorit is describing?
That is the dynamic at play. Kyle's closeness to PK makes her perspective unique, but also susceptible to seeming like she's defending the behavior, even if she's just trying to understand his motives. For Dorit, who is desperate for simple validation, Kyle's nuanced defense can feel like a betrayal.
And we can't talk about the deep dive into emotional fallout without touching on Erica Jane, who is still grappling with the 5-year emotional weight of her separation from Tom and the legal mess that followed.
The fact that the legal and emotional consequences are still dominating her life years later just underscores the weight of the situation. She opened up, expressing genuine heartbreak and belief that her ex-husband, Tom, is going to die in prison.
The weight of that expectation, regardless of his crimes, is an immense burden on her own sense of closure.
She spoke about seeking closure, admitting uncertainty about whether she should even visit him. And that statement she made, she said she wished he would die before he would get to prison. That indicates the heavy, complex toll the situation continues to take on her.
It's a conflict between wanting justice and wanting to be free of the dark cloud he represents.
This really highlights the lingering trauma. She noted that she still has civil cases pending. Even though the marriage is over and the criminal sentencing has occurred, the legal fallout is not. She wonders if she will ever truly be free.
It's the definition of delayed closure. She can't move on when the consequences of her past life continue to dominate her present.
Now, moving to a fresh energy, Kyle introduced a newcomer to the group, Amanda Francis.
And the connection is a domestic one. Amanda purchased Kyle's massive Bel Air home, providing a literal and symbolic bridge between the two women. She's a young mother, getting married soon.
And in a serendipitous twist, registered at the same fancy store as Kyle's daughter, Alexia. Amanda brings a really distinct modern brand to the group. She is known as the Money Queen and wrote the book Rich as Feck.
So she represents a different kind of Beverly Hills wealth, self-made and spiritually motivated.
And her personal mythology is pretty interesting, especially since she's known for manifesting success. She claims her husband manifested her, which is a detail worth noting in terms of her public identity. It's a very on-brand meet-cute.
She has a complex family unit as well. She confirms she has 2 stepkids, saying, "I'm raising them," and 2 other biological children. She steps into this group bringing business success, a fresh outlook, and, as we'll see, a strong, uncompromising sense of self.
Which immediately puts her at odds with the established power structure. That strong sense of self was tested almost immediately in the next segment, which focuses on a specific immediate conflict between Erica Jane and Amanda Francis regarding alcohol.
The setting was Jennifer Tilly's Sip and Draw party, which had its own surprise. Naked men serving as models. So the atmosphere was light, intended to be loose.
For sure. And when Jennifer Tilly offered drinks, Amanda simply asked for a mocktail. In that social context, especially within the confines of a housewife event, asking for a mocktail is a subtle but noticeable rejection of the established social contract of the group.
And Erica Jane, whose entire trajectory has been defined by the loss of control and the effort to regain it, she reacted immediately. She said, "Boo, you had to drink alcohol. I mean, unless you're Kyle."
That single statement is a social contract test and a power move. It singles out Amanda for her deviation while providing an exception for Kyle, a longtime cast member. She's essentially saying the rules of this group dictate that new people must perform certain behaviors and only the OGs have earned the right to abstain.
Amanda didn't internalize that comment, though. She clarified in a confessional that she prefers not to drink, though she isn't strictly sober. But she immediately challenged Erica's right to comment on her decision.
And she asked the critical, penetrating question that gets to the heart of the franchise. Am I going to be shamed for good life choices? Is that her MO? This reaction signals that Amanda is not afraid to confront the established hierarchy.
The sources included fan reactions, which zeroed in on the perceived double standard. They questioned why Kyle's choice not to drink was respected and validated by Erica, but Amanda's identical choice was met with pressure and shaming.
This taps into a fundamental critique of this franchise. The implicit rule that housewives must engage in certain chaotic behaviors, like heavy drinking, to be entertaining. The fan comments suggesting that not drinking is a red flag for a housewife just underscores that expectation.
And Amanda is rejecting that pressure, which sets up an interesting dynamic for her future on the show.
She is refusing to perform the chaos expected of a newbie.
We transition now to a truly heartbreaking and serious situation involving Meghan King, formerly of the Real Housewives of Orange County. This is one of those off-screen stories that really speaks to the massive, devastating real-world impact this lifestyle can have on family life.
The focus here is on a newly reached custody agreement between Meghan King and her ex-husband, Jim Edmonds, and it was negotiated just before a scheduled court hearing.
The fact that they reached an agreement out of court suggests a strong impetus to finalize matters and avoid the further scrutiny a trial would bring.
But the terms themselves are shocking. The 3 children, 8-year-old Aspen and 7-year-old twins Hart and Hayes, will now live full-time in Tennessee with Jim Edmonds and his wife, Courtney O'Connor.
And the dramatic shift in Meghan's access is equally severe. Meghan will only see the children for a few weeks each summer.
That is a seismic shift in custody. It effectively moves the children's primary residence hundreds of miles away and dramatically limits Meghan's physical presence in their daily lives to less than a month per year.
This agreement follows a devastating event that triggered the process. Meghan temporarily lost custody after a Child Protective Services, or CPS, investigation was launched against her.
Right, and the initial loss of custody and the subsequent extreme arrangement, it just begs the question, what exactly prompted CPS involvement? A school employee reported Meghan after she allegedly gave Hayes, who has ADHD, unprescribed Ritalin, and then asked the school to administer it as well.
Let's pause and unpack the severity of that specific action, because that detail is crucial to understanding why the outcome was so dramatic. Why is administering unprescribed Ritalin such a severe trigger for CPS involvement?
Well, it immediately moves the situation from a standard parental dispute to a serious ethical and potentially legal violation concerning the child's safety and health. Ritalin is a Schedule II controlled substance.
Meaning it has a high potential for abuse and dependency.
Exactly. It's a psychoactive medication that has to be carefully monitored by a physician. When a parent administers a controlled substance without a doctor's prescription and then asks a school to participate in that unauthorized administration, it crosses a significant legal line.
It's not just a medical error. It's an unauthorized medical intervention. It places the school employee in a position of potential liability and the child at risk.
And that level of intervention triggers mandated reporter requirements, forcing the school to report it. So following that report and the temporary loss of custody, Meghan was initially granted only supervised visitation.
So the trajectory from unsupervised custody to supervised visitation and now to this new arrangement where the children live full-time with Jim, it just underscores the seriousness of the findings and the court's interpretation of her actions.
This is not a standard 50-50 dispute. This is a massive custodial loss tied directly to that incident report.
The reaction from former co-stars speaks to the complexity of the situation. Kelly Dodd insisted Meghan was an excellent mother who deeply loves her children.
Which is a sentiment that acknowledges her personal character but clashes with the severity of the legal outcome. Tamra Judge also weighed in on her podcast, saying Meghan was devastated and that the children were confused by the situation.
It's a sobering reminder that regardless of fame, a CPS investigation and subsequent court findings can completely reorganize a family structure.
Let's round out our deep dive with a comprehensive look at Southern Charm's Shep Rose, who recently provided a detailed personal inventory covering his relationships, regrets, and his current self-improvement goals.
Shep started with immediate cleanup, addressing his recent outburst at BravoCon, targeting Craig Conover and Paige DeSorbo. He apologized, acknowledging the rant was not the energy I'm trying to give.
Which sounds like the classic celebrity apology, but let's see how deep his reflection goes. He did reach out to Craig via text to apologize. And what's interesting about Craig's reaction is what didn't bother him.
He was primarily upset that Shep didn't get his back during a WWHL Live segment, rather than the content of the rant itself.
Exactly. It just illustrates how often in these friend groups, the problem isn't the insult, but the perceived lack of loyalty or protection during a public confrontation.
Regarding his highly scrutinized relationship with Taylor Ann Green, Shep confirmed they are not in touch.
And he indicated that her current boyfriend, Gaston Rojas, would not like that. This confirms the finality of that separation and the necessary distance now being maintained.
He was remarkably candid about his regrets, though. I mean, he showed a level of self-awareness we rarely saw from him in the past. He admitted he has major regrets about cheating on Taylor all the time.
That is a massive admission of repeated failure and personal responsibility for the relationship's demise.
But he drew a fascinating, almost contradictory line when discussing the breakup. He said he does not regret convincing her to quit her job so they could travel. He called that time amazing.
This is a psychological nuance we need to unpack. He's separating the shared experience from his personal moral failing. He is essentially saying, I regret my poor behavior and lack of fidelity, but I don't regret the good times we created together through travel.
He's putting the blame on himself, not on the life they built. He also briefly reminisced about other past flings, showing a maturity in his reflection. He looks back fondly on his romance with Sienna Evans.
And he also admitted there were sparks with Molly O'Connell, who is now singing in a band with her new boyfriend, whom Shep said he's a big fan of.
This paints a picture of someone genuinely attempting to move forward with grace, reflecting on the past fondly, without lingering attachments or resentments. This is a sign of personal evolution.
Absolutely. In a rapid-fire game, Shep gave some quick cast opinions. He named Craig Conover as the cast member with the biggest ego, a somewhat surprising choice given their long-standing friendship.
He also expressed approval for the idea of a romance between Summer House's Carl Radke and Vanita Aspen. And speaking of Summer House, he confirmed he has no beef with Carl Radke or Kyle Cook.
And he said he has a lot of affection for many of the cast members on that show, indicating he's expanded his social circle beyond the Charleston bubble.
Now for the core of his current trajectory. Shep laid out his top 5 goals for growth in the next year, noting they were inspired by his shaman in Costa Rica.
Right, and these goals are clearly steps toward emotional maturity and greater self-control. He's aiming to rewrite the Shep Rose brand.
The first and most important goal, according to a shaman, is to be unbotherable.
He noted that being bothered gives someone else power over you. For a man historically driven by petty feuds and reacting impulsively to slights, this is a massive goal focused on maintaining internal peace.
Second, he wants to be of service to friends, people he cares about, and really anybody. That's a significant shift from the self-focus that defined his earlier seasons.
Third, to do things that make him happy, putting him in a good spot mentally and physically. This sounds simple, but for someone whose life revolved around perpetual party mode, this means prioritizing true well-being over social obligation.
Fourth, to write more and be excited about his new book coming out, confirming his desire to continue to cultivate his passions outside of just reality TV.
And finally, his fifth goal, simply put, to be in love. A clear signal that while he is focused on individual growth, he is also open to a committed romantic future.
But presumably one built on the foundation of his 4 previous goals. It's a holistic self-improvement plan, rooted in his past failures.
And finally, during that rapid-fire game, he gave some fun reality TV swipes. He swiped right on Michelle Thani, Portia Williams, Ashley Darby, and Rachel Zoe. He said Dorit Kemsley was too close to home due to his friendship with Teddy Mellencamp.
That small detail speaks volumes about the intertwined social web of these reality universes, where friendships with former cast members can influence even a rapid-fire dating game.
What a sweep of updates. From the deepest legal fallout to the most private, personal reflections, we've covered immense ground.
And if we connect all these disparate threads, several core themes stand out for you, the learner. First, there's the pervasive struggle for privacy in the public eye, exemplified by Kyle Richards.
Second, the extreme complexity of legal and financial fallout, both from crime, as seen with Jen Shah's ongoing fight over her release date, and from messy divorce, highlighted by Dorit's intense battle with PK.
Third, we see how production strategy must constantly evolve to survive. As seen with the RHONJ structural pause, a reconciliation wasn't enough to save the narrative. Only a full reset will do.
And finally, the immense difficulty of finding resolution in family conflicts, especially when professional decisions cross legal and ethical boundaries, as experienced tragically by Meghan King-Bador and the resulting loss of primary custody.
The key takeaway for you is that the sheer volume of off-screen legal, custody, and production news often drives the narrative as much, or even more than, the content aired on television. Understanding the timeline and the high-stakes custody loss, prison release terms, and financial penalties is absolutely essential for seeing why these dynamics play out the way they do.
So with the intensity and unexpected length of the RHO-SLC reunion and the reports that major announcements like Bronwyn's separation were made there as a strategic public launch point, we're left with a final provocative thought. What level of accountability should viewers expect when cast members use a reunion, essentially a highly scripted televised event, as the public forum for major life-altering news that affects their families? It seems that even when seeking privacy, the ultimate, unavoidable path to resolution and moving forward is directly through the camera.